We opened it up early. We're going to let everyone sort of come into the space in the next couple of minutes. Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started at about 5:02 or so. I feel like we should have music playing or something. Hello, everyone. This is exciting. It's nice to be able to Zoom from in here. Got our Wi-Fi set up in our kitchen. Welcome, everyone. So it's about 2 minutes to 5. We're going to start at about 5:03 or so, 5:02, maybe, since we opened it up early. Watching the numbers go up. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I wish there was a fire going in here. It's actually cold right now. Let's see here. There's an occasional mouse in here that might run across the video or make noise in the kitchen. Welcome, everybody. If you have any interest, if you haven't done so yet, go grab a drink of some sort. This is definitely a wind down live at 5. I am sipping on some rum, and I'll tell you why in a moment. It's very significant to Stratford Hall and to the Lees and to those who were enslaved here. So I'm sipping on some rum right now at 5 o'clock. Well, it's 5 o'clock in a minute, so it's 5 o'clock somewhere. So let's pretend we're at some sort of, conference center bar, and we're all meeting up after a wonderful day of sessions. We're ordering drinks. It's just COVID, so we're doing it at our jobs and at our homes. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We opened it up a couple of minutes early to make sure everybody has time to log in. I highly recommend going and grabbing a drink of sorts if you'd like. It's definitely going to be a fun, casual conversation, a welcoming conversation, an engaging conversation with Dontavius and I, and those of you that are Zooming in here from your homes and your workplaces. It's 5 o'clock right now. I'm going to give everyone until about 5:02, and then we'll kick it off with our co-host tonight, my dear friend and colleague, resident chef at Stratford Hall, Dontavius Williams. So yeah, I feel like I need to do like a song and dance or like play some music or something for this awkward pause. It's like before you give a public lecture and it's silent, and it's kind of like, all right, someone start talking before we're all crying in a corner somewhere. So I'm here at Stratford Hall in the 1738 kitchen. I've got my colleagues here with me. That's why I have a mask right here. They are socially distanced away from me, but we are in here enjoying the space, talking about the space, plotting the space as we do all the time. So if you notice, I usually disable the chats for these kinds of things. I find them a bit distracting. If there are any questions at all during any of this program, please enter it into the Q&A box, and I'll be moderating as soon as Dontavius and I do our little shindig here, and welcome everybody. It's 5:01. We got one more minute. Again, if you're just joining us, this is Kelly Dietz from Stratford Hall. Please, actually, I'll fix my name right now. Please go grab a drink, a glass of wine, a cup of hot cocoa, whatever you choose to sip on. It's definitely an evening, well, I wish it was evening, a 5 o'clock wind down kind of thing. Let's see here. All right, it is 5:02. Okay, Dontavius, where are you at? We've got a nice full room of people here. This is exciting. As soon as Dontavius comes on here, I see him Starting to enable his video so we can see him here in a moment. We were just chatting it up a minute ago, and I was showing him the kitchen that he cooks in all the time and does these amazing programs with.
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir, but where is your video?
I don't know what I did. Hold on.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna let you figure that out. I feel like we're about to see you.
That was so embarrassing.
You gotta be all dramatic and special. Like, I want to show up fashionably late and make an appearance. I see you, Dontavius.
In true Dontavius fashion, that was so embarrassing. It's not like I don't use Zoom every day.
Every day, right? For everything. All right, everybody, Vammers, is that what you call yourselves? Is that what we call ourselves? Welcome to the first Friday at Live at 5. Not Friday, I wish it was Friday. Welcome to the first Live at 5. My name is Dr. Kelly Fonto-Dietz, and I'm the Director of Programming, Education, and Visitor Engagement at Stratford Hall in Westmoreland County on the northern neck of Virginia. And we are here tonight in the 1738 kitchen, where our dear friend here and colleague, Dontavius Williams, is a regular in this kitchen, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
One of my favorite hearts to cook.
You just said my favorite, then you said one of my favorites.
Well, see, what happened was I was trying to be wrong. Just
there you go.
Trying to be politically correct, people get jealous, but
like I just did a second ago. I got you. It's okay. So, Dontavius and I, at this point, are old friends. We are colleagues. We are co-conspirators. We love to tell the stories of the enslaved, particularly those who were enslaved in kitchens, like Caesar, who was the chef here at Stratford Hall in the mid-18th century. It has been an honor to have Dontavius part of our interpretive efforts here at Stratford since I've been here over the last 2.5 years. You initiated the first Christmastide with a pure African-American interpretation a couple of years ago here. That was phenomenal. This kitchen has never been so full. It was literally, right, Dontavius, like elbow to elbow, people jamming in here pre-COVID. And you were talking about some important stuff. You were talking about Caesar. You were talking about race and space and the importance of these stories. And it's always an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. And one of the biggest things that stood out to me that night was the fact that their names matter. And to actually say the names and to breathe the names of the enslaved people there at Stratford Hall. It breathed life into the plantation, and it made the work for me so much easier,
And I think the fact that you bring up names is really important. So again, for those of you that are zooming in, we're not going to have this formal sort of lecture, even though Dontavius and I can totally just sort of get going and then forget that there's people watching us. So we will be engaging with you, of course. But I think it's really important what you brought up. The use of names, saying people's names, listing the names of people. There have been such an irresponsible absence of naming the people who built this country, who built the places like Stratford Hall, who cooked and labored their entire lives on these plantations for people like the family, the Lee family. They were as rich as they were because of the enslaved labor. And it's time now in 2021, it was time a long time ago, but it is time to have this conversation, right?
You're exactly right. You are exactly right. And it helps the people to, visitors to be able to appreciate the work that's happening at these historic sites. And when historic sites can actually own it, it helps to increase their visitor participation. Because visitors know when you're blowing smoke.
There's no better way to put it, right?
It's cooking, right? I'm serious, they do, because people are now, we live in an age where there's no excuse for not having information. A lot of times we get some wrong information because I've had to field quite a few incorrect questions, or incorrect assumptions. I've had to correct a few of those things. But I mean, the information is out there, and it's up to the person to be able to figure out what they want to know. And they're asking the difficult questions. Sites have to be ready for those answers.
Gotta be ready to go in and have that conversation. So on that note, we had the pleasure, Dontavius and several others. We had Justin Cherry, who has the at Half Crown Bakehouse, and we had Cheney McKnight, Nicole Moore. We had the series of African-American foodways, Lenny Sorensen, it was colonial foodways and culture. And a big significant part of that was talking about African-American foodways and culture at Stratford in Virginia and in the Southern United States. And we had a series of cooking demonstrations that were done. And we're going to show you one of the ones that was filmed. This was the first one. So this started, when was that, in August, Dontavius? It was hot.
So it was hot. That's all I can remember is the heat.
So we had some funding from Virginia Humanities and the Mars Corporation, and we basically, we put together this series of foodways programs and culture programs, and Dontavius starred in several of them. So we're going to show you a 14-minute cooking demonstration that was done in our absolutely unique and exceptional, I will say, 18th century kitchen. What's up, Dontavius?
Can you do that one more time?
Oh, see?
All the feels that. Oh man, it's beautiful. I love it. I'll see you next week.
Our kitchen is pretty special at Stratford. The Lees literally were feasting. As you hear about people like Thomas Jefferson who were having these elaborate dinners, they were doing it long before Jefferson was even born. So I think it's important to sort of acknowledge that as well. And this kitchen was used as early as 1738 to make some pretty amazing meals. The hearth is gigantic. You will see Dontavius standing next to it in a moment. It is huge. And when you have a huge hearth, you are making a lot of food. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and play this video. So I will share my screen. Again, it's 14 minutes long. It's on YouTube as well. So if you miss part of it, if you have to run and grab something and come back, you can see it later.
So for a matter of perspective, I stand 5'11.5". So that'll kind of give you a little bit of perspective as to how huge that space is.
I think you're taller than that.
No, well, I was 6 feet, but the ½ inch went to my belly.
Oh, anyways, on that note, all right, everybody, let's watch Dontavius make peanut soup.
Peanut soup, often seen as a colonial delicacy, even a delicacy today in Virginia. But would you believe me if I told you that the peanut actually started out as animal food or even food for the enslaved? Yeah, that's right. Dontavius Williams here. We're hanging out at Stratford Hall, cooking today and focusing in on the cuisine of the enslaved West Africans that came here. Many people don't know much about the peanut. The peanut actually was around since the Incan Empire and brought throughout the entire triangular trade system and ended up in Africa and became a delicacy in Ghana. Something from nothing, right? Something from nothing is what life was like for the enslaved. To take something that was considered animal food and turn it into a delicacy that families all around will love for centuries to come speaks of the strength and the ingenuity of the enslaved people. Now today we're making peanut soup, and with this peanut soup we're going to start off by actually shelling the peanuts and turning them into peanut butter. So we're going to crack the peanut open here, and you want to make a really smooth peanut butter. So the shell, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the inside of a peanut, but it's a legume, and it has a beautiful nut on the inside with a papery shell that you don't want in your soup because it does not break down. So you just take the hull off and drop it into your bowl here. And like I said, you want them good and clean. You drop them in your mortar and pestle, and you just get to grinding. Now this is a hard job. But if you're strong enough, if you know what you're doing, you can make it in a matter of minutes. It's a great opportunity to get the kids working in the kitchen too. Make it happen. Grind it down. You end up with a really smooth paste that we will see in just a little bit. It'll be a key player in this recipe. So today we have modern technology and we have stores that we can go to get peanut butter. But just imagine doing this on a rock and you're grinding these down from day to day. So you end up with a paste like this. This will come into play much later, but we're just gonna let this sit for just a little bit here, and then we're gonna move on to actually cooking our vegetables. So one pot meals for the African American, for the African West African slave, was very important because no one has a lot of time to sit and stand over a pot all day while they're cooking, while they're working. There were jobs to get done. And there was so much to do on the plantation that you just didn't have time. So one pot meals were lifesavers. Stewed chicken, things like that, okra tomato soup, these type recipes were vital for the cuisine of the enslaved. This meal here is a one pot meal, and we're going to season all along the way. So we're going to first start off with the onions. We're going to start off with onions. You're just going to chop it very coarsely here because it cooks down all day. We're working all day. So by the time we come back from lunch or for dinner in the top of the day, this thing will have cooked down and everything will be melted together and delicious. So we're just going to do this. One of the cool things about working in a kitchen like this is you don't have to worry about garbage because my incinerator is back here. I got a fire. Just throw that in there. You know. So we're gonna chop it up. It doesn't matter. We're gonna chop it up. People who were living on this plantation against their will, they had to figure out how life was going to happen, how they were going to make do with what they had. Provisions with those rations. Tomatoes and potatoes and onions, all of these things were things that could have easily been grown in their garden spaces or palinkas. They could have grown these things to be able to supplement what was given to them in their rations. So these onions, they're really easy to grow. All you have to do is put them in the ground and go, you know. The lives of the enslaved, their lives were so busy, tending to other people's business that they didn't really have much time to tend to their own. So, like Saturday evenings or Sundays would be the times when they were able to work in their own garden spaces and focus in on their families and doing what they had to do. Seasonings, peppers, like this big old juicy pepper here. This is kind of a sweet pepper, but it has a little bit of kick to it. Now listen, West African cuisine was a good spicy food, but it had a really good blend to it. So we're gonna add some peppers to it. So we're gonna cut this pepper up, kind of wax it. You see, you've got some seeds in there. We don't want those, so we're just gonna take those out. If it's a couple left in there, that's fine. So whenever you think about it, we eat once with the pepper, but we eat many times over when we keep the seeds. These are very valuable. So we're not throwing these away. We're going to save them for later. Even your onion slips, you have a root there. You know, it looks like it may be dead, but you put it in some good dirt, and I promise you, you'll have onions growing in the spring. Nothing wasted. When you cook, watch those fingers. Nobody wants fingers in their food. So we're going to peel this ginger. Some people work too hard trying to peel it, and you end up losing more of your ginger than you need to. Kind of like peeling a carrot. It smells so good. You want to slice it really thin and almost make a paste out of it. So I could actually take it and put it in the mortar and pestle and grind it up. But today, I'm just going to chop it. So when I'm in this kitchen, I'm thinking of my grandmother and the stories that she shared, and my grandfather and the stories that he shared with me. I think about Caesar, who was a cook here, and his son, Caesar Jr., who was a cook, and he also worked in the stable yards. These people really mattered. Caesar was a very skilled chef. If you take a tour of this big house here, and you look in that dining hall, that food was elaborate. He knew a lot more than many people give him credit for. All right, now for the protein part of this meal, typically you will not use your good chickens for dinner. Contrary to popular belief, chickens are valuable in that they give you eggs. Eggs are so important. You get an egg a day from a chicken, and while hens are still laying, you don't want to waste your eggs. So the good thing about chickens is they run out of eggs, and when they run out of eggs, when they stop laying, then they become dinner. So you want to actually chop up. We have a hen here who has stopped giving us eggs, so now she's going to give us her final meal, and that's going to be this soup, this peanut soup. So we're going to see here. We're going to see how she cuts here. You want to use a really, really, really sharp knife. But many people are like, man, I don't know how to cut a chicken. I have no idea. The chicken tells you how she wants to be cut. So you have your leg and your thigh. There's a joint right here along the back of your chicken. You want to pop that joint loose. If you can hear that. You want to pop that joint loose and then just cut. Now, right in here, there's a joint. You want to do the same thing. Pop that joint loose and cut in the empty space. Cutting a chicken is really, really easy. Now, many people probably would look at me and be like, that's not the French way, that's not this way. Well, it's my way, and it works. There we go. But the back of the chicken is actually my favorite part because you get a little bit of the white meat, you get a little bit of the dark meat from the leg and thigh, but you also get a piece of the neck, the chicken neck. You get everything. Nothing gets wasted. I'm about to start cooking the actual soup. So what you see here is my kettle. It is preheating. It's been preheating. We have a little oil in the bottom of it, a little lard, if you will, that we're going to use to kind of get these vegetables seared and going really good. And then we're going to put the chicken in on top of it and just let it stew down. But I want to talk about some of the things here in this fireplace. As you see here, we have this beautiful, beautiful iron arm to be able to help me not stay in the fireplace forever. So as I'm cooking, I can actually bring the arm out and not have to stand inside of the fireplace to get the work done. And it keeps me from getting too hot, burning myself, or getting hurt. So as you work in an open fire like this, you want to be very careful. So as you see, we have X hooks. These things, all of these iron works were actually created by a blacksmith. And a blacksmith was responsible for creating fence work, utilitarian tools, like these things that we see in the kitchen. You have toasters. It's so many things that the blacksmith can do. So typically, if you look at a slave registry and you see a blacksmith or you see someone who has a very expensive cost, typically it's because they have a skill. And the skill of a blacksmith is a very important skill. So we may use this a little later on if I want my pot to get much closer to the coals. Now, you see the fire. One thing that I like to help people to understand is the fire is hot, but those orange, white looking coals are hotter than the fire. So what I want to do is I want the fire to actually go down and give me really good hot coals. Because again, this pot is going to cook all day really slowly. So if we have those hot coals and I lower my pot all the way down into those coals, it'll cook all day without burning. So let's get to these vegetables. Remember those onions? Time for them to go in the pot. Oh, beautiful goodness. Peppers in the pot. The ginger, it'll go in just a little bit. What are you going to season it with? Let me tell you. We're going to put a little salt, and then we're going to also put a little kitchen pepper. Kitchen pepper is, a season all. It's a lot of different herbs and spices ground together, and each person has their own recipe. You don't have a pants, huh? So we're just gonna drop the chicken in. Of course, the back is the first piece to go in. But everything goes in. Gizzards, liver, heart, everything. Nothing wasted. Scotch bonnet pepper, really hot pepper. Just drop that over in there and let it give all of its good flavor all day long. Look, I'm gonna add some water to it here and just let it cook for the rest of the day. Add the peanut butter is in there. It's gonna cook low and slow all day. All right, so it's been about 2 hours. We've been waiting and listening and smelling. Check it out. Peanut butter syrup. It's thickened up. You get all that good gravy and grease. And of course, you put it over some rice. Straight up West African style. Listen, I feel sorry for y'all because that's good. Listen, the lives of the enslaved were so important. Their cuisine was very important. And we cannot forget about them. This right here proves that they knew how to take nothing and turn it into something. Hundreds of years later, this delicacy lives on. Peanut butter soup. You should try it.
Look at you. You're like, that soup is delicious. I'm getting hungry.
So good. Listen, I sat here and wrote the recipe down again.
I love it.
Recipe that I don't have written down. So
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So, oh my goodness, that day, for those of you that are watching, it was like 90 degrees, classic August, torturous day. And Dontavius, you were in that kitchen all day because you cooked the other meal for the other program as well. Right afterwards, you might have seen some collards and some black-eyed peas, and you'll see that video on our YouTube channel as well. But I mean, you were in there, and what is it like cooking in the kitchen? What is it like for you interpreting the lives of the enslaved, particularly in a kitchen space?
That particular day made everything make so much sense. As you guys could probably tell, I have very large eyes. But in the video, my eyes were super low. I looked beat down. That heat from outside combined with the heat of that fireplace just put things into perspective for me, Kelly. And it gave me a deeper appreciation for those people who had to live their lives enslaved. I had a choice that day. I had a choice, and you guys kept telling me, hey, go to the break room there and cool off. But I didn't. I sat under the tree. I let the breeze cool me off a little bit, and I went back. Because I wanted to honor. I'm smart. I drank water. I got myself together, but I wanted to honor those people, and that's how it feels. I feel like every time I step into a historic kitchen, that I'm honoring the person who had to do that for a living. I do it now by choice, in a way to honor them. But my everyday is sitting in front of a computer, talking with students. I don't have to do that. I do it because I choose to.
That was beautifully said. And I think too, just being in a space like this, I think, us museum professionals, those of us that work at historic sites, we cannot forget the power of place and the energy on each site, not to be all like hippy dippy, but the energy on each site is different. And Stratford Hall, I'm a historian of 18th and 19th century African-American history and foodways. I have been a consultant at museum sites all over the Mid-Atlantic, throughout the South. I have never been to a site, and I'm not just saying this because I work at Stratford and I love this place. I've never been at a site that has such strong energy in terms of seriously like wanting the stories to be told. How do you feel about Stratford, Dontavius? I know we share the same very, emotional feeling.
Yeah, I'm going to hold it together. I think I cry every time we have a Zoom, and people going to begin to think that you treat me
It's
wrong.
the onions. It's the onions.
I guess that's what it is.
Onions.
But Stratford Hall is like my place of revival, of sorts. The first time that I came out, I did not come to cook. I came to do storytelling. But that was such a life-changing event, in a couple different ways. Just personally, it did a lot for me. And it helped to prepare me for just the site helped me to prepare for a season that I didn't know that I was going to experience. My uncle passed away while I was there, unexpectedly. For me, the family knew that he had been sick, but I got the call while I was there that he had passed away. Um, but yet and still, I held on. I was strong enough to be able to maintain and deal with it. And then eventually go and eulogize him once I got home. Um, but for this journey, the work that I do as a living history interpreter is more than me just putting on those clothes, Kelly. Is more than just cooking and creating wonderful dishes that I sit back and watch everyone enjoy. Um, it's breathing life into those people. It's breathing humanity back into the lives of the people who were not seen as human. They were
Mm.
cattle. They were property. And so for me to be at Stratford Hall and to be at sites that have such great energy, like that, um, it means a whole lot. There's another point of honor in Lynchburg. Um, their kitchen not so much has the energy, but there's a room inside of that house there that when I went in, I just felt like such a warm presence, such a warm, welcoming, feeling that made the work so much easier because it was like, thank you for finally doing this for us because we've been forgotten for so long. And so
Mm.
it's like find it easy to forget about the difficult stories, to tell those stories that are a little bit more easier to digest. But the best way to tell a difficult truth is to bring in food programs because everybody eats.
Yep, it's that common sort of denominator with a lot of things. And, like you had just said, and the work that I've been doing over, African American Foodways over the last 15 years plus, I've noticed that, and I say this in my book as well, it's almost like the gateway drug into talking about slavery. It's like I give these lectures on my book all the time. I get people coming to my talks that they don't want to know anything
Mhm.
about enslavement, but they want to know about those biscuits and that pudding, and they get them in a space and you can lure them in with that food medium. And then you start talking about Caesar, you start talking about Sookie, you start talking about Chef Hercules, you start talking about all of these people that literally built this country and created American cuisine. And through their labor, through their stories, through their pain, through their perseverance, through their survival, you have this acknowledgement of their contributions to this country. I'm getting chills right now in this kitchen, sort of thinking about this, but food, any site that has a kitchen, needs to be using that space as a way to talk about race and power and the history of our nation. Because there is no more powerful place, I'm convinced, to have those kinds of conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, in that space, and not to recreate a time, but to honor the time, to honor those who had to live through that time. Yeah, man, it's a powerful work. It's a work of social justice.
Absolutely.
If you think about it, because it shows a lot of times people don't understand how much we have in common with a lot of people who don't look like me, have don't realize how much they have in common with the enslaved population, with the diet of the enslaved, Like
Yes.
peanut
Right.
soup seemed like a Virginia thing. That's a Virginia
Yep.
thing. My grandmama and granddaddy did this. I heard that often
Mm.
at Christmas time when
Yes.
I said, but you just don't understand that these peanuts were considered pig food.
Mm-hmm.
But today it's a Virginia staple that
Yep.
came from the coast of Africa.
And those dishes too. I mean, thinking about things like jambalaya, that's the descendant of jollof rice, gumbo. I mean, all of these things are African dishes that are so much a part of Southern, which I consider to be the essential American cuisine because of the history of this country. It's just pretty fantastic. We do have some questions. You and I, again, Dontavius and I will sit and talk for hours. So I'll try to we'll calm down a little bit and engage with y'all that are here Zooming with us. So Emily Kilgore writes, hello, I love this program. Yay! We have been experimenting with teaching food history from our museum's era, from the Civil War to the 1910s and 20s. Really interesting period, by the way. And I was curious as to how you've done your filming. I'm assuming your materials were covered in your grant, but I was curious as to technology. Also, thank you for telling the enslaved story, and I love Dontavius. We all love Dontavius.
I love you too. You know something, Kelly. I think a lot of times people don't realize that when I say I love you back, I mean that thing. I really do. I'm just an old, big-hearted dude.
And you're so good with the public too. I can't, for those of you that are like, we want to have African American interpretation, but we can't afford to hire anybody, or who do we reach out to? We only know, so-and-so who happens to be in, not the right look for this site. Dontavius, Cheney McKnight, Nicole Moore. I mean, there's so many people that do this work, and, having you and your people's, Cheney and all them, like your whole crew of folks, having, the Slave Dwelling Project come and do a program as well, that group of people that come to your site, they will change the ways in which the public sees you, the ways in which you engage. I mean, it's fantastic. So yeah. Okay. Filming. So Justin Fornell is a dear friend of ours. I met him through my work with National Geographic. He basically, if we have a budget, he'll film for us, and he's a wonderful person to work with. There's lots of other ways. Please reach out to me directly at kdeets@stratfordhall.org, and I will help you get in touch with him or someone else. Basically, so Dontavius, we were That was a 3-day shoot with you and Justin Cherry. And Justin, we got all the films done in about 72 hours or so. And then they were edited back in New York where Justin is, Justin Fornell. And then we sort of turned them into these little clips and created programs around them. And I think that was a very easy way, if there's anything easy in 2020, that was a very easy way to get our stories out there. So thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. Carol says that was great. Thank you. Thank you. Sue, where did you learn to cook over that open fire inside? Wasn't that coal? Would have been used more commonly used? It was wood, but go ahead, Dontavius.
So coal. Well, coal is coal. That's just that. But
yeah.
Yeah. So that was wood. I learned to cook over the open fire by accident, believe it or not. I worked at a historic site and forgot my lunch at home. And I looked in the fridge in our office, and there was we did cooking demonstrations, but I didn't go in the kitchen because those who cooked in the kitchen didn't know what they were doing, and everything always turned out bad. So I didn't want to be attached to failure. Anyway, I've always loved cooking. I started cooking at probably 7 by myself. I tried to fry chicken at 7 by myself. The only thing that stopped me was I didn't have cooking oil. But I would have fried the chicken at 7. But anyway, I didn't have anything but a chicken. I had some greens in the garden at the site that day. And so I just picked the greens, I put the chicken, kind of trussed it up, tied it up, and I hung it over the fire. And that was the beginning of it. I just seasoned it the way that I would want to do, and just played around with the distance and played around with the coals. So it literally was just by accident. When I realized that the flavor of everything and how everything how that fireplace, how that hearth made everything so magical. Man, every week I was cooking and my boss had to tell me, listen, you gotta kind of slow down. Spending. So I said, okay, that's fine. I won't use the account, out the museum's account. I would buy my own groceries and cook on site.
Just to teach yourself how to do
So
it.
I can take dinner home. Yeah, so I can learn. But there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you're not going to stop me from being great.
I love it. And you are great. So it's funny, I was a chef for 10 years in California. So like I can throw down on a wolf range, like get out the way, but on top of that fire, I mean, working with you, I've worked a little bit with you in terms of you're like, I gotta go do something, watch the chicken. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. Don't burn it up. But it's a different beast, working on that fire. You can't just turn it up and turn it down. And it's a whole nother thing.
It's a beautiful dance, is what I like to call it, because if you get the fire too hot, things are going to burn. And you have to know when to put a log on, because if you put a log on too late, then it's going to kill your coals. It comes with practice. You just have to not be afraid, because when you're afraid, that's when you get hurt. But you have to also just have the curiosity to try to make it work. So.
I remember last time you were here, which was Christmas time, when you were here with the crew with Cheney and Nicole, and that you were lighting up the fire, and then all of a sudden it popped and you're like, the fire popped, it's ready. It's like these little things that you just pick up, and like I'm learning from you. It's fascinating. Okay, so let's see here. John Verrill asks, what is the most frequently asked question from museum visitors? If you're talking about at Stratford, there's a bunch, but I mean, we can talk specifically about like that one program that we did, because a lot of the stuff we've been doing recently, Dontavius, right, has been on Zoom. But that one program that you did, you were getting a ton of questions about slavery and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was a rich conversation happening in there as the chicken was cooking and as the smoke was burring up.
Yeah, one of the biggest questions, one of the main questions, especially when I'm doing cooking programs, one of the main questions is that fire real?
No.
No lie.
Like, no, it's fake.
It's the hologram and this sweat and the fact that I'm about to have a heat stroke in the middle of July. Yeah, no, that's
right. No.
I'm really a robot. These are the inside jokes that we tell, kind of afterwards. But and it's no shade, because people, it's an honest question. Some people are city folk, and some people have never seen a fire in a fireplace.
That's true. That's true.
Historic building. Gosh, why would you have a live fire in this 300-year-old kitchen? Well, it's made of brick, and it has held thousands of fires over the years. So, but that's really one of the main questions that I'm asked. Who's going to eat the food after you finish? I've had people to try and show off in front of their children. And greet me as though I were enslaved, and say, when is dinner gonna be done, boy? And I would have to respond and say, dinner will be done when it's done, but my name is Dontavius, not boy. And you have those moments of contention whenever you do this work. But as a professional, you have to know how to handle it. But you don't want to brush it off as if it didn't happen. You want to stop it in its tracks. Because if you empower a person to talk to you any type way, especially as an African American interpreter, if you allow that to happen and just say, haha, it was just funny, this is what it was, they will go to other sites and go to other places and continue this behavior. And we don't want to do that. So, we're not out here trying to embarrass people, but we want to educate so that you respect the museum professionals that are doing the work. But yeah, it's a multitude of questions. I can't pull one, especially from that day. Kelly, from those times that I have been here, I can't pull one from out of the hat. But they all are always.
Yeah. Good. Thank you for asking that. All right. So I think our internet's a little spotty. I hope everybody can hear us. I know it was going in and out there. I heard you pretty good, but it was a little robotic at times. So I think we're good. And not, I think it was my connection. You're good. All right. Anonymous attendee. This is a really good question, and I definitely want to address this. So they ask, do you have any concerns, or do you have concerns that guests could compartmentalize too much? Meaning, in a way, they don't get the full picture. The reason I ask is because I recently rewrote our tour because, I'm sorry, people got too comfortable adding the story of the enslaved people as an afterthought in the kitchen. So I'm going to tackle this head on, if you don't mind, Dontavius, because I have a lot to say about this. So I would argue that I think telling the stories of the enslaved is an afterthought at museums. That's just a fact. I mean, even the places that are leading the charge, that have been doing it fantastically for 20 plus years, it still was an afterthought of the 80s, of the 70s, of the early 20th century, of the 19th century. There has been an incredible disservice done to the history and legacy of enslaved people in this country and throughout the diaspora. And it is an afterthought. So I think acknowledging the fact that, yes, it is an afterthought. However, this afterthought can turn into something very powerful. It can turn into new tours. It can turn into educating people, understanding the lives of the enslaved. And I do think that so that said, the idea that there is an afterthought of this sort of like checking boxes, right? Oh, we have to talk about slavery now. 2020 happened. Quick, add it to that story in the kitchen. That's very problematic. So I really thank you for asking that, because when you go to a plantation site or any site that had enslaved laborers, you need to have their story woven completely into the narrative. You can't have some weird box to check that exists only in the kitchen. At Stratford Hall, you take the regular tour, there are enslaved perspectives and stories and people discussed through the entire house. If you were visiting here in the 19th century, in the 18th century, the vast majority of the people living in the space, working in the space, were of African descent and enslaved. So thinking about how do you approach telling these stories, right? And I'm sorry, I'm getting very passionate right now, but this is definitely like why I do what I do. How do you tell these stories? You tell them authentically. Another question from Anonymous is, how did you do the research? I have a PhD. I'm a specialist in African-American history. Most sites have a little bit of information. You have to read against the archive. And that means, okay, you only have the names of 3 people, right? Figure out through inference, through reading other books. There's a ton of books now on enslaved history. It is not some weird, obscure thing. You can read the stuff that was written in the 60s, or you can jump right into literally new books every month coming out that are breaking open these stories. There is archival research. There is also oral history. Reach out to descendants. They have vast amounts of knowledge. They will tell you about their ancestors, and they should be telling you and informing that tour, because it is their history that you're telling. I'm sorry, I'm getting really preachy right now. Dontavius, do you want to hit any more of that before I go into professor mode here?
This is what you do. You are everything that is right about wrong interpretation at historic sites. You went in and changed things up at Stratford Hall, and I appreciate that. And when I went on the guided tour, the self-guided audio tour there, and I think one of the very first things I said to you was, I appreciate this tour, because a lot of times you don't hear it, and it is an afterthought. But we have to understand that these lives, these worlds were not 2 separate worlds. These are not parallel universes. These people lived lives together, and the story should be told in that way. As far as research is concerned, research start with the narratives. The WPA narratives are it's a phenomenal start, because you hear from the words from themselves, from the enslaved people, the formerly enslaved people themselves. Use those things. But I think a lot of times we find it very difficult when we hit roadblocks to stop. But I always tell people, when I worked at that, historic site, nothing was given to me. Absolutely nothing. There was one file folder, and I think I have it right here. One file folder. You see how thin this folder is? That's what was given to me. And so I had to literally order books. My mom said to me, Don, if another book comes to my house, I'm going to scream. Well, the next week, 3 books came to the house, but I had to do it. And one of the very first books that I read is dated, and that I still use to this day. And it's kind of hard to read some of his ideas, but Roll, Jordan, Roll by
Oh,
Genevieve. It's kind of tough to read the way that he writes, but it was a great start for me. So that was my Bible. I carried that book around for everything. John Henry Hammond's book for how he ran his plantation. That's a primary source to see how plantations were run here in the South. So the stuff is out there. We just have to, as you said, read against the archives, dig into it.
yeah, you got to. And if anybody is, at a site where they want to do this interpretation and they want to do it correctly, please reach out. Dontavius and I would love to talk to you about how to fix this thing, because, for us and the people that we work with, it's like we want this history to be out there. We're not sitting here like, oh, we're just going to be really good at this and everybody else can go. It's not a competitive thing. It's an equity thing, and it's a justice thing. And so for us, this is restorative justice. This is racial reconciliation. This is all the things that brought us to this conversation here today. So we have a fun question here. Laura from the Museum of the Shenandoah Valley asks, are you ready? What is your favorite thing to cook over the open fire?
Fried chicken. No thought about it. Fried chicken. So it's 2 things: fried chicken and fried fish are my 2 favorite things. And then you can't have fried chicken without having some sort of tomato soup. And okra and tomato soup is my absolute favorite. So that fried fish, okra and tomato soup in the summertime. Now you wouldn't think, Kelly, soup in the summer, but I grew up in a Black family. You surprised? And so we did this thing. So in the tradition of the Black church, we have what's called camp meeting. And at camp meeting, we have it's a wash pot. It's this big wash pot of soup. So they're frying fish in one pan, and they got a big pot of soup cooking, and everybody's sweating and eating soup, sweating and eating soup. So in the middle of the summer, we have a big pot of soup and a fish fry. That's one of my favorite things to cook over the open fire.
Okay, so why haven't we done this at Stratford? I think we have to have a conversation here.
Fish fry. We need to do it. Let's do it.
In Virginia too, when I was doing my research for my book, they had fish fries all the time and big barbecues where plantations would literally, the planter family and a lot of their enslaved would come with them, and they'd have these huge feasts, like especially on the water. And I guarantee they had those at Stratford. I absolutely guarantee it.
The 4th of July was a very big time on plantations, and especially in the antebellum South, for barbecues, those fish fries, those things. Because that was an opportunity for everyone. Everyone is celebrating. The enslaved is celebrating independence while being bound themselves. What a conundrum, right? And Frederick Douglass talks about this, in his speech. But at the end of the day, in that moment, they were able to experience freedom from the humdrum day in life. We can have this barbecue. We can chill for a little bit. We can get a moment. A Selah. Let me just breathe. The overseer's off my back. Let me chill. Those moments were built in, or they built them in, so that they can be able to survive such a vile system.
And I think that acknowledging those moments is really important, because they, as you said, they were a product of the conditions of slavery, but it was also a way of taking that time for yourself. When you're interpreting enslaved people at sites, you can't just talk about, the brutality and the rules and the law and the numbers. It's like, talk about how they survived every day. How did they look at their children at night when they went to sleep? What stories did they tell them? What games did they play? Those things existed. This is not like some weird, sort of past thing where it's like, it was all this like terror and horror. Absolutely, right? But it was the ways in which I know I almost slipped up. It was the ways in which you like made space within that. I get really excited. So excuse me, I'm gonna calm down here.
That was Professor D. No.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Jennifer says I'm so hungry. I agree. And if you had his chicken or anything, you'd be eating your fingers off right now. Anonymous attendee says, can we come for dinner sometime? Absolutely. We will be having programs at Stratford, hopefully open soon, but not anytime too soon. So maybe sometime in the fall, we'll see what COVID does. Also, Dontavius, so when you cook, you usually use the secret thing called kitchen pepper. You want to talk about that for a minute? It's like Laurie season who?
Yeah, who's Laurie's? It's Adam's kitchen pepper is I said it that weekend. I said kitchen pepper so much that Justin changed my name to kitchen pepper. But it is an all-purpose blend. It's kind of like a curry. Everyone has their own special blend of seasoning. Adam's kitchen pepper is what I call it. It is a blend of like 8 or 9 different spices that brings everything together. You can put it on anything. My mom made some spaghetti the other night, and she put some on it. And listen, she said it was the best thing. But kitchen pepper is, again, like I said, that all spice blend of what you have, that you just go to. But I actually have developed a version of it on my own, and actually have it in the marketplace now. So I'm glad. Look, and I'm
Look like
always
Dontavius.
I'm always prepared, right?
You have a scar? I had no idea.
Shameless plug. Is this how the makeup girls do it?
Yeah, exactly. Then you got to reveal yourself, and you're all like made up and special.
Just sprinkle a little bit. Don't.
Your hairdresser's gonna kick your butt if you do that. Where can you buy it? Or people are asking, where can you buy it?
It's easy. You can find it on our website.
People are getting excited. Here, I'm gonna type this in. I can't even do that. I think. Hold on. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's www.thechroniclesofadam.weebly.com. Or if you just
that's a lot of. Hold on here.
If you can just search the Chronicles of Adam, it'll be on Facebook, Instagram,
there you go.
Twitter.
Yeah, Dontavius is easy to find. And, the program that you do, how I met you originally, right, which was years ago, even before I helped you cook that one time, which is kind of wild. I met you and you were doing the Chronicles of Adam. Do you want to talk a minute about that? Because I feel like that particular program, if somebody doesn't have a historic kitchen, can't offer, and reach a handout to Dontavius, be like, hey, do you want to come do this program, do some hearth cooking, but wants to have some sort of interpretation of enslaved life, what does your program offer? Because it is phenomenal.
It's good.
That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you guys have seen Adam over my shoulder. I go nowhere without him, and he goes nowhere without me at this point now. Adam was an enslaved blacksmith in the 1800s here in South Carolina. The only thing that we know about Adam is that he was valued at $1,000. He had a wife and 5 children. By 1865, he was no longer in the family, but his wife and children still remained on the plantation when they were free. So what I did was I found myself in a situation when I needed to interpret slavery to young people and old people in the same room at the same time, and I was finding it very difficult. But everybody loves a good story, right? I was having a horrible day at my former job, and I sat in the original slave cabin where I would often sit when I would have bad days. There were a lot of them, being the only African American working at the site. And you had a group of people who were pretty insensitive to race and the story of the enslaved. So I often found myself sitting in there, and it seemed as though a little boy about 8 or 9 years old comes up to me and looks at me with these big, sad puppy dog eyes and says, "Can you please just tell my story?"
Mm.
No kid, nobody, no nothing. It was a spiritual awakening of sorts for me. And as of that point, ideas started flooding my head, and Adam's story was birthed. Adam's story is the Chronicles of Adam is a tale that transcends time and location. It doesn't matter where we are. We can be in the middle of a field. We can be in the middle of a high school gym or auditorium. And Adam will take you back in time where he talks about his family. He talks about his children, his wife. He also talks about his childhood and some of the trials and tribulations and victories that he experienced. It's a tale, it's a story that everybody can connect with. From kids as young as 3 or 4 in preschools to people who are 98, 99 years old suffering from dementia. And I say that, Kelly, I don't know if you know this or not, but I did a program at a senior living home, and this lady had dementia. She was 98 years old, hadn't spoken
Mm.
in years. And Adam comes on singing Still Away. And I heard as I was doing the song, finishing the song, I heard this really gargly singing that turned into this um, rich singing and rich voice. And the lady started singing the song. I just stopped singing and I stepped back and
Over?
I let her go. I let her sing her heart out. And afterwards, I went to speak to her after the program, and she sat just like this the whole time singing.
Mm.
And the whole time she sat like this during the program, and I went and spoke to her. She never looked up at me and she never spoke again. The staff told me that this lady hadn't spoken in years.
Oh my goodness.
Everyone can get something from this program. And I use the Chronicles of Adam to be able to educate the public, but also to inspire and to level that playing field so that we can be able to dig deeper into our past and appreciate the victories, but also appreciate those struggles because it's the struggles that America has had to face that has given us the strength that we have to be able to move
Mm.
forward into tomorrow.
Beautifully said. I did not know that story. That is so powerful. And I have to say, I've seen you do that several times. And for those of you that have not seen this program, Dontavius literally, like, he will disappear for a while and he will come out in period clothing. He'll be singing that song from wherever he's coming out of. I can't I can't express in words the feeling that overcomes that space. I've been when there's a bunch of people and there's kids running around, where it's been a small group, everyone gets quiet. And Adam, it's first person, Adam commands the attention, the empathy, the passion, the emotions from every single person in that space. And I have seen you evoke Adam, which is really incredible. You have, and you've been at, I work all over the state, so I've seen you do this so many places. And I know certain people at different sites, and Adam has somehow picked people out of the crowd that I know really well. And you give them that doll and you do this thing and you're giving them advice and you don't remember it half the time, right? And it is so on point. It is one of the most amazing programs I've ever seen. I mean, if not the most amazing programs. The fact that you made that elder sing and speak for the first time is not surprising at all.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing, and I'm just glad. I told you I wasn't gonna cry. You did this on purpose, doggone it.
It's the kitchen pepper. It's the kitchen pepper. It got in your eyes. See, I was like, "Where's that pepper at? Shake it like this," and then it'll be on your face.
No, but seriously, it's a weight. But it's a good weight. It's many people don't know that I'm an ordained minister as well, but I carry that
Mm.
and I handle the Chronicles of Adam and I handle this work just like I would handle Rami, who wrote for um, oh God, Epicurious.
Curious.
Wrote an
Yep.
article about the kitchen pepper and Epicurious. She captured that quote so perfectly. I handle this work just like I would handle the Holy Sacrament. And it means that much to me. Um, I think even if I weren't Black, even if I didn't have ties to West Africa, um, I would still I would still do it the same way. And it's because it's by call. I didn't choose this, it chose me. That little boy came to see me. I didn't go looking for him. I was in that cabin sulking. I was ticked off. I was angry. I was trying not to beat somebody up before I went home,
Mhm.
but those stories came, and here we are, what, 7 years later, 8 years later, and I'm traveling the country. Who would have known that I would have met and been able to work with the people that I'm working with, and have worked with and genuine friendships with,
Mhm.
from interpreting slavery? It's life changing. Cooking in that kitchen is life changing, not just for me, but for everyone else. So I'm not sure about you guys. I opened up with saying that visiting Stratford Hall is like revival, but right now I feel like revival is happening in each individual home, and on behind each individual screen, because I feel like people are able to say, "Dang, we can really do this." I look at
Yep.
the wall in my office here, and there was a cover story on the News in Advance in Lynchburg. I was the first African American to cook in the kitchen at Point of Honor since the time of enslavement.
Mhm.
So it's these things happen not because I go out looking for them, but because I feel the ancestors trust me enough to handle their story and their truth with compassion and with respect. And if I can't do it, I'm not going to.
Beautifully said. And I have to say too, I'm gonna give you a little snap, snap, snap. It has been an honor to be friends with you, to be colleagues with you, to build with you, to have you at Stratford Hall. Stratford Hall and we're trying to wrap up here, and I know that it's after 6. Again, Davis and all, and I could literally talk for hours. And someone's asking about a scavenger hunt. I have no idea what that code is. You're gonna have to ask somebody else. But to wrap this up, Dontavius, the work that you do, the work that we do collectively, with our group of people that literally, I mean, we've got like a gang of folks that all feel passionately about this. We all get along really, really well. We're all complete history nerds. And we're doing this because this is our life's calling. And I want you all to think about, if you want to tell the story of the enslaved, if you want to take on these kinds of storytelling initiatives, why do you want to do it? Think about the why. The why is clear with Dontavius. The why, I think, is clear with me. I could get into that more another time, but I have dedicated my life to telling the stories of the enslaved at plantation sites, particularly in Virginia. This is why I do what I do. It's important. I am passionate about this. You can't go into this work, sort of, not, I'm gonna say mediocre. You can't go into this work sort of like lukewarm. You have to have a fire, the same fire that Dontavius lights up here, whether it's through his work with Adam or his interpreting Caesar. You have to have a fire to want to tell these stories because it is the right thing to do, not because you feel guilty for not doing it, not because your boss thinks that somehow you have to check a box. This work needs to be done authentically, with integrity and passion. And if you do it that way, if you consult with the descendants, if you talk to people like Dontavius, if you engage with historians, you are going to have a phenomenal history to tell at your site. So thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and if they don't feel comfortable doing that, and there are great people outside of myself who do this. Joseph McGill, Chain McKnight,
He
Nicole.
just said hello. He's on here.
I see he asked where am I appearing next. I'll actually be doing a project next week, and it's a private thing that I'll be doing next week in Virginia at Stratford Hall. But in May, I believe May 14th through the 16th, we'll be in Dallas, Texas, with the Slave Dwelling Project, at Dallas Heritage Village. So I'm excited about that. I think it may be a virtual thing. So if you follow the Chronicles of Adam, you can keep up with it. You'll see it. But a lot of sites don't feel like they have the bandwidth, Kelly, to be able to do it. So reach out to those who can do it. Just open the door. and we will make ourselves at home. No worries. Just provide the wood and the food, and we'll
And the
make
respect. And the respect.
and the respect. Definitely the respect.
And I think too, for those of you that are sitting here and your gears are turning and you're wondering, I know for a fact as the director of programming here, I would love to partner with sites. If you're a site that is feeling uncomfortable or doesn't think you have the resources, reach out. We could do, Virginia is a small and powerful historical state. We could do a whole statewide, cooking program and get money from the federal government to do so. So reach out, let's build together as a collective. I think that VAM is a wonderful outlet for this. And I think that our network of awesome people, Dontavius, could really, again, make a machine that could seriously change the way that people talk about food, enslavement, and history generally. So on that note, I want to thank you, Dontavius, as always, for being on here with Zoom. I can't wait to hang out with you in a couple of weeks in this kitchen. It's going to be fantastic. And for all of you, any of you that want to come visit, Stratford Hall's interpretation has changed drastically since my team and I have turned the ship around a couple of years ago. And if you haven't been here in the last 3 years, I would argue you haven't been to Stratford Hall. Anything else you want to add there, sir?
Hey, Emily. Emily from Lynchburg is on. Let's see. But thank everybody. Thank you all for having me this evening with Kelly. Thank you, Kelly, for being such a gracious hostess. I'm jealous that you had your rum. Now tell us, you didn't mention the rum, but
Oh, yes. Okay, so the Lees, as we leave, and a toast to all of you for zooming in, the Lees were pretty much obsessed with entertaining and eating, but drinking, and they loved their rum. So there was, hogsheads full of rum in the basement here and the cellar, and they had, they would pay people in rum to do different chores. So a lot of folks were drinking whiskey. They were sipping on rum and Madeira. So, it's a West African drink here, made in Barbados, invented in Barbados, rum, and we're drinking this Bajan rum right now. So cheers to all of you. Cheers, Dontavius. And I will see you, and we'll drink rum together in a couple of weeks. So awesome. And again, please, anybody reach out to me. Anybody that saw this session and wants a free visit to Stratford, I will give you guest passes, and just email me. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Dontavius.
Night.